Hello everyone, my name is Jessie, I'm an artist and I live in Japan. Today we are working on a plant witch. This was originally a drawing I had from last year after October. I never finished it, but recently I went back to it and I finished it super slowly, so that's why there are a lot of details. The prompt was urban and witch. So to explain a little bit, she's a young witch who loves plants and just started to learn and get in touch with her powers, and she noticed that she has a special connection to plants. So she brought a lot of books and she's just excited to get started. So let's get started ourselves. So I prepared a board and then I taped the paper to the board. I couldn't tape all the way around the square or the paper because I had some line art and I didn't want to ruin it, so that was my mistake this time. But after that, just started coloring. But to go back to her story, I just want to explain that she is more of a flora witch who can use some of her magic for healing. So I really wanted to emphasize her connection with plants. So I just drew plants everywhere. And I also imagine her living in our time in kind of a desert area, so she doesn't care much about being fashionable. Comfort is more of her thing, and she lives in kind of a refurbished home that has those natural bricks in the back. So I hope that comes out through with this drawing. You'll see it later on in the video. Originally, I did do a sample color test with her having a darker skin complexion. I always want to represent different type of people, but it just didn't really work this time. Since the wall was dark and other things were dark, it would all blend together too much, so I changed her to a ginger girl so that she is distinguishable from the background and her surrounding items. So I ended up just coloring another white girl. Yep, pretty much. Now, let me say a few things about watercolor. I'm still learning how to use it. I'm still learning the ropes, and I'm taking advice from other YouTube videos and courses on Skillshare. There are a lot of helpful sources, but I still have some questions about more specific things that I haven't been able to find. And I'm not sure if to ask other artists because I don't want to bother them. Who knows? Maybe tons of people ask them this same question so many times and they don't want to become a record player. I understand how that feels. So I just don't want to be a bother really. But I do want to know, how do you make skin look smooth? Here I'm trying, but I don't know if I waited enough for that layer to dry, and I did get some advice from someone who said just add very, very light layers. Of course, wait for each layer to dry completely and then just do that over and over again with very, very light color so that it looks smooth. Earlier when you saw me apply color to her cheeks, I felt like I had too much water in that section, so I ended up with this sort of like crease line, and I'm trying to avoid getting that, so I'm not really sure what I did wrong there, because again, I thought maybe I just used too much water, or maybe the color was too dark and I needed to, just constantly do light layers as that person said. Another friend told me that for you to figure out how the layers completely dry is just kind of touch it with your pinky a little bit, and then if it's still a little bit wet or moist, you'll find out, unless you have very, very rough skin. But yeah, another thing that I want to know is I'm using fairly cheap, affordable watercolor sets, and after learning about professional grade and student grade watercolor, is this a factor for why I can't blend so well sometimes, or is it just my lack of experience with it? Surely buying something expensive isn't the only solution to being able to blend and layer well. Like, again, like when I was doing the skin, it just didn't look as smooth as I wanted it to be, and I'm not sure how to fix it. Oh, by the way, I'm trying this new palette. I got it at Daiso. It was $1. I was running out of space on the one that I was using already, so I kind of needed a second one, and it was a good excuse to get out of the house. Yeah. But yeah, going back to the things that I want to ask about, this next one is not necessarily a question, it's just something that I noticed that I didn't like, and I'm just not sure what I'm doing wrong, if I'm doing something wrong, or what I can do differently to make it not look like that. So when I do start coloring the brick wall, I just didn't like how the first layer looked like. It looks very chalky. I'm not sure how to explain it. It doesn't look smooth, and it's patchy. That's a good word. It looks very patchy, and then I added another layer to make it more smooth looking so that you don't see kind of those brush strokes. Yeah, so you don't see those brush strokes. Then I started to color in the bricks, and the watercolor wasn't layering very well. It's like it was reactivating the color underneath. So I'm not sure what I was doing wrong or if I could fix that, but I tried my best to make it look good, meaning that the water got very, very wet and it kind of started to warp a little bit. But I did wait for them to dry in order to kind of continue adding different layers of color, especially since it got darker and darker. Intermission. By the way, if you like my content, don't forget to like and subscribe and put your notifications on so you get notified about when the next video comes up. And if you want to see more art, sketches, process photos, and behind the scenes stuff, or just my daily life in Japan, you can follow me on Instagram or Twitter. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to know for now. I'm not sure I have any other questions at the moment. Maybe later I will. So when I do, I will just ask you guys. But I have learned a few more things through this drawing, like you can pull the watercolor so that the corner where you stopped your brush can look darker than the rest. But if you don't want it to look darker than the rest, you just keep pulling it a little bit on the paper. Then I also learned you can use a piece of tissue or whatever you want to use that can absorb the color and help fix some mistakes, but use it too much and it may also take the pigment away, which is what happened to me when I tried to fix the face. And if you have too much water for a small area, it can create this sort of crease line that I mentioned earlier on the edges, which looks weird and not always good. But you can try to fix it by reactivating that crease line area with a little bit of water so that it blends better. Correct me if I'm wrong, these are just some things that I've noticed and tried in this drawing. Again, I am a noob, so don't take my word as ultimate truth. I definitely recommend to look at other people's videos on watercolor and whatnot. You might learn something different or more. But yeah, those are just some things I've noticed and some of the questions that I still have. I just feel like if I took a workshop class with an awesome watercolor artist, I would be able to have my questions answered and, learn more. But they're expensive. Maybe someday. Anyways, if you know solutions, let me know. I always welcome discussions, and if I do learn the answers to some of these things that I mentioned in this video, I will of course let you know in a future video, because I'm not gonna stop using watercolor. I love using it. It's a little bit tricky still for me, but I just like how fluid it looks. comparing it to oil painting, which I've tried it, I didn't like it. Comparing it to that, I feel like I don't need to wait forever for the paint to dry. Also, you can fix certain mistakes, you can go back to certain areas, and there's not that much waiting. Compared to oil painting, I just felt like it's very, what's a good word? It's very mixable, if that makes any sense. So if you put one layer and then you accidentally touch that layer, you can still put more color on it, but it just may not look the same, or it may not look like you wanted it to look like. By the way, if you haven't already noticed, I have done that brick wall, and did you see that first layer? God, it did not look good at all whatsoever, and I started to panic and maybe cry a little bit in the inside because it just wasn't looking the way I wanted it to. It wasn't living up to the expectations that I had for this piece, and I actually was procrastinating parts of this because I just wanted it to look that good. I didn't want to mess up at all, and I didn't want to start all over again just because, you know, look at this, it's so much line art. So definitely didn't want to start over again, but I think once I started adding the bricks, as I said, it kind of made it look better. It still looks a little bit muddy, but overall I think it's okay for now. One thing that I did change from my overall idea from the beginning was actually adding the lines on the carpet. I think it gave it a really nice knitted or stitched kind of texture to it, and after I added that, I just felt so happy because it didn't look flat anymore, and I could also kind of hide some imperfections too. And then you also see me here adding the background to this little area where I wanted it to look like shelves, like natural shelves that are part of the wall. It's not attached to it because these are brick walls. You cannot screw anything to a brick wall. And also I'm fixing some of the bricks that I wanted to look a little bit darker too. So just overall some detail touch up in this area. Though it took a long time, and yes, I was very scared of screwing it up with my noob skills, so I kept delaying it. Again, I'm very attached to this line art also. I just think it's so nice. I would use this as a coloring book, paper, piece, whatever. But anyways, as always, there's something new to learn from this experience, something to improve on. As the saying goes, there's no other way but up. With that said, I can only anticipate how more awesome they will be in the future, not to toot my own horn, but if I can do this now, I can just imagine what I can do 3 years later, as long as I continue to practice a lot constantly. And she is done, by the way, because I didn't say that yet, so I'm saying it now. She's finished. I mean, just look at the plants and the shades. Oh, I'm so excited. And the candles, I love how the candles came out. And then the books too, it kind of looks like old paper, not totally new paper, so it kind of gives you the idea that these are kind of ancient and have something powerful in it. And look at her hair, it's amazing. And maybe I could have done better with some of those plants in the middle, but hey, there's not much more that I could have done to it, and this is what it ended up being. So I don't know, for this time I'm pretty proud of it, and also I added a few details to the floor, which you previously just saw. And before we're finished today, let me leave you off with some tape porn. As always, thank you for watching this video and listening to my boring voice. Let me know if I did really well or if I did royally bad. I'll leave that up to you. Anyways, I will see you next time. Ciao!